This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Ash, Christopher Mitchell, and 212th Trooper. The Harbinger is abuzz with activities the Autobots and their human friends prepare for war. A grim prospect that has all assembled on edge, though also a strangely hopeful one, as once this battle is done, then perhaps at last rebuilding can begin, and old scars can be allowed to heal. Feeling they should use every possible tool in their arsenals to avoid a most grisly death, Starscream approaches Raph and Ratchet to question if they found anything in the depths of the derelict ship that might prove useful, with the smallest human saying that actually he did, before leading Starscream into a lab. Here 5 blank protoforms hang suspended on the wall along with a terminal that carries information on cloning, with this causing the Jetbot's optics to proverbially light up as he immediately imagines 5 duplicates of himself defending him as he confronts Megatron and wipes that smug, snarling grin off his disgusting face. However, this is just a dream, as when he proposes the idea to Prime, the red and blue leader flatly refuses, while beside him, Bulkhead chuckles that it's probably for the best, as if the other Screamies are just like him, they'd all likely flee at the first sign of danger, making them no use to anyone. Gruffly, Ratchet agrees that while this may be, there is another way they could make use of the protoforms, or at least 2 of them. This reminds Optimus that Miko and Wheeljack did recover those 2 Predacon fossils, so if they were able to use them in conjunction with the cloning data, they could have 2 Predacons fighting on their side. Frantically, Starscream rebuts that they could also triple Megatron's supply of monsters, since while those things are supposedly sentient, there's no telling if they'd agree to fight for the Autobot cause. However, here Ratchet replies that he might have a workaround for that, asking Raphael if he may borrow his phone. Then, once he has it, he sets to work cloning the 2 Predacons. Due to Ratchet's scientific genius, aided by Raph and Starscream, it takes far less time than it did Shockwave to create Predacon, so that before long, 2 of ancient Cybertron's apex predators stand before them. It is here that the Docbot reveals his plan to make allies of the beasts, with it in fact just being Megatron's plans to expose Starscream's misdeeds, as he pulls out the phone and plays Shockwave's transmission reporting that he had terminated all the other Predacons. Grinning that the Doctor is a devious side after all, Starscream joins in on this, asking if the thought that their brethren were exterminated in their sleep does not anger the pair, and as he had hoped, the 2 Predacons let out joint furious roars. Unfortunately, these are accompanied by gouts of flame breath that very nearly melt through the ceiling of the lab, though this is why Optimus is present, as manifesting his sword, he slashes cleanly through one of the walls, a rather primitive display of strength, but one the Predacons can respect as they calm down. Pleased by this result, even if he finds no pleasure in being made to use force, Optimus then requests that they revert to their robot mode so they can speak. As the pair had not known they were capable of such a transformation, this takes a minute, though due to not needing to discover this on their own like Predacon did, they manage it, becoming hulking robots and introducing themselves as Darksteel and Skylynx. Nodding, Optimus greets the pair, and in a humble voice asks that they join his forces for their upcoming fight against the Decepticons, since just like they destroyed the other Predacons, they also brought ruin upon his people, and turned their shared homeworld into a graveyard, so it is essential they defeat them here, as that is the only way they can revive Cybertron, and that both Autobots and Predacons can have a future. Inspired by this, Skylynx, as the larger and therefore more dominant Predacon, bends his knee to Optimus, agreeing that on this day their forces shall be as one. Giving the pair a grateful smile, Optimus then looks to Starscream, saying that he will be the Predacon's commander, an order that comes just as much of an unwelcome surprise to the Jetbot as it does to his new subordinates, with all 3 demanding to know why. Sagely, Optimus answers that as Starscream himself said back in Scotland, he is the Autobot with the most experience when it comes to Predacons, so it is only natural that he lead them, and seeing no way to argue this, the Defector merely lets out a strangled gurgle as the pair of Predacons close in on him and growl that he better not be the weakling he appears, or they'll tear him to shreds and melt the remains down to slag. Unfortunately for Starscream, this bullying persists long after Optimus and Ratchet have left the duo in his care, that he is almost glad when Arcee arrives through the Grand Bridge a little while later, as her threats are at least less brutish. Thankfully, it seems in the wake of her talk with Wheeljack, she has at last reached a point where she can abstain from killing him on sight, though this is about all the Jetbot can hope for, as when she looks at him, there is still unmistakable hatred in her optics. However, one person she is at least happy to see is Jack, as bending down, she apologizes for not recovering his mother in time. However, she promises she will rescue her and Agent Fowler once they're aboard the warship. Nodding, Jack replies that he has no doubt about it, though all the same, he's going with her, since they're partners, and she needs someone to keep her out of trouble. Sighing fondly that he's gotten reckless without her around, Arcee reluctantly agrees, since she knows he won't be able to sit still while his mum's in danger, though this does come with a caveat that he's to stay with her at all times, an order the black-haired boy has no problem agreeing to. Unfortunately, when Miko attempts to make a similar appeal to Bulkhead, this is shot down, as due to never scrapping hardshell and being recognized as a wrecker, she's told to stay home with a warning that if he catches her trying to sneak after them, he will toss her head first through a ground bridge. Speaking of, Raph also decides to stay behind so that he can operate the ground bridge, as this way, it will free Ratchet up to go with the others, as if there's going to be a big battle, they might need a medic on hand. Now with everyone assembled, the Autobots prepare to move out, though before they can, Smokescreen approaches Optimus, offering him the Forge of Solus Prime, as while he's held onto it since they came to the Harbinger, it rightfully belongs in the hands of a Prime. However, here Optimus declines, stating that after restoring him, its power has dwindled significantly, to the point where it only has a single use left, and one he is unwilling to spend carelessly. To that end, he feels it is best to entrust the Forge to Smokescreen for the time being, as while he may not have the power of a Prime to use its repairing capabilities, he has shown judgment, leadership, and bravery that make him worthy to carry it. Truthfully, the rookie isn't sure what to say to this, and so simply gives a salute before slinging the weapon over his back and forming up with the others as Optimus explains the plan one last time. This assault will be carried out in 2 waves, the first of which comprises of Optimus, Starscream, and the Predacons as the ones capable of flight, with the 4 of them approaching the warship directly from the air in an attempt to draw the attention of Megatron and his forces. This will allow the second team made up of Arcee, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, Bumblebee, Ratchet, Smokescreen, and Jack to ground bridge directly into the ship, allowing them to catch their enemies off guard. Then, once they have established a foothold on either end of the ship, they'll begin pushing towards the center in an attempt to pinch the Decepticons and force a surrender. With this settled, the first team take flight, with Optimus using his wings while Starscream and the Predacons transform. Over the comm, Miko relays the warship's coordinates, with this allowing the strike force to close in without issue, though, due to wanting to be seen, they don't bother employing stealth, instead favouring a frontal assault as they begin a strafing run along the hull. Naturally, the Decepticons attempt to fight back with their turrets, though summoning his upgraded blaster, Optimus begins destroying them, while Starscream and the Predacons follow suit with their missiles and flame breath respectively. Due to their enemies being surprised, it only takes 2 passes to destroy every cannon, leaving the warship defenseless and freeing them up to land on the flight deck. Reverting to their bot modes, the group then bust their way inside, where unsurprisingly a group of Vehicons stand at the ready. However, what they are not ready for is the full power of Optimus Prime, nor do they stand a chance against 2 ancient Cybertronian warriors who revel in this violence as they tear the defenders apart. Then, when there is no one left to stand in their way, they start running down the corridor, intent on reaching the center of the ship as quickly as possible to rendezvous with their allies. Speaking of, now that the A-Team are inside, Starscream gives the signal for Raph to fire up the ground bridge, and taking this as their cue, those aboard the Harbinger charge through the portal, weapons blazing as they arrive on the bridge of the Decepticon Warship. As planned, this takes the bridge crew by surprise, and as many fall before they can react, one among their number, that being Soundwave, manifests a ground bridge of his own and flees. This strikes those who know him as odd, since while the mute communications officer is many things, a coward isn't one of them, so if he's fled somewhere else, he must have some grander plan than just saving his own skin. Making note to keep an optic out for him as they begin Phase 2, the group set to work accessing the ship's systems, whereupon Ratchet swiftly deactivates all locks and security systems on board, before severing the internal comm network, so now the cons can't coordinate their movements or call for backup. Finally, Ratchet gives everyone a copy of the vessel's schematics, since they'll need it if they don't want to get lost. Then, as he and Smokescreen settle in to hold the bridge, they watch as Wheeljack and Bulkhead roll out as one team, while Bumblebee, Arcee, and Jack form the other. Their mission, to secure as much of the warship as they can while making their way towards the back to rendezvous with Optimus and his team. Back with them, having dealt with a few more small groups of Vehicons who refuse to stand down, the 4-bot squad have come to a fork in the road. Figuring they can't allow either path to remain uncaptured in case Megatron or one of his stronger lieutenants is there, Optimus instructs his subordinates to split up, with him going one way, while Starscream, Darksteel, and Skylynx go the other. Noting their understanding, the trio break off, though rather than take the direct line towards the center as he perhaps should, Starscream instructs the Predacons to follow him down a detour. Gruffly, Skylynx asks why the leader is going off the beaten path. Though in his usual testy way, Starscream replies that just down that passage is the vault, and it is something that was stolen from him, which he was unable to reclaim last time he was here, though if there's any hope of achieving Prime's dream of restoring Cybertron, they must get it back. Smirking, Darksteel questions why they don't just get it when they've won the battle, since this detour is a waste of time when they could be ripping up Vehicons. Though holding his ground, the Jetbot insists that it might be too late, as when Megatron realizes he's gonna lose, he might have the Omega Key destroyed in a final act of pettiness. After all, it's what he'd do in that situation. Unfortunately, Starscream is not the only one here capable of predicting his enemy's movements, so when the trio enter the vault, they see a familiar and very unwelcome face waiting for them, Shockwave. In his analytical voice, the Cyclopean scientist states that he knew Starscream would come here, as he is always at the whim of his emotions. In this case, his guilt at losing the Omega Key, and his hubristic belief that he must be the one to reclaim it, both of which were simple to predict and exploit. He then raises his cannon arm, having no need to posture or pontificate when he can simply blow Starscream away and set to work dismantling this Autobot assault, though it seems it is already too late, as having recognized his voice from the recording as the one who terminated the other Predacons, Darksteel and Skylynx transform into their beast modes and lunge at Shockwave, pinning him down so there is no escape from their gnashing fangs, razor claws, and smelting flames. True to his stoic nature, Shockwave does not even scream as he experiences what must surely be an utterly agonizing death, with even the vengeful Starscream finding it a little revolting when he sees what remains of his old rival once the Predacons are done with him. Nonetheless, as he strolls over and plucks the final Omega Key from its case, he admits that in spite of himself, he's really come around on the pair, and is glad they're here. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Bulkhead and Wheeljack find their paths blocked by none other than Dreadwing, who declares that today shall be the Wrecker's last day, as he will terminate them just like he did their former teammate Sea Spray. Cracking his knuckles, Wheeljack grunts that he never did pay old Dreddy back for that, while beside him, Bulk grunts that there's no time like the present. Then, as one, they transform and race towards Dreadwing in an attempt to sweep his legs. Though being a seasoned warrior, the Decepticon 2IC simply responds by becoming a jet and raining blasts down on them from above. Thinking fast, Wheeljack uses this chance to shift back so he can shoulder barge the plane into the corridor wall, though this just earns him an equally quick kick to the face as Dreadwing becomes a robot again too. However, before he can make use of Wheeljack staggering to break free of the Wrecker's pin, Bulkhead re-enters the fray as he slams a wrecking ball hand into his enemy's face, sending him skidding down the corridor while the Autobots give chase. However, Dreadwing does not take long to recover from this, burying a hand in the floor and coming to a screeching halt just as the Wreckers reach him. Done fighting on the defensive, he then pulls out a pair of explosives which he hurls at his foes, though rapidly shifting to and from a car so he can get in front of Bulk, Wheeljack bursts forward and slices the mines before they can detonate, freeing his buddy up to land the punch that he was aiming for Dreadwing's jaw. This sends the plane staggering, and seeing a path to victory, Bulk keeps going, crouching low and shoulder barging the off-balanced Dreadwing so they both hit the ground while Wheeljack approaches and lays a blade against the downed Con's throat. Briefly, Dreadwing considers forcing a draw with his explosives by blowing himself up and taking out the two Autobots with him, like the Green Wrecker tried to do when they last met, though with his hands pinned by Bulkhead's weight, and Wheeljack more than likely able to decapitate him before he could move even if he could reach his weapons, Dreadwing reluctantly yields, putting on the pair of stasis cuffs once he is allowed to sit, still with that blade to his throat. When he is cuffed, the blue and yellow jet admits that he is impressed by the pair, as they remind him of when he and his brother Skyquake fought together, with Bulk grunting that the feeling's mutual, and that he sees what Optimus means about him having honor, even if it is a fragged up con type of honor. However, it seems Wheeljack is less impressed, as he tells Bulk to keep heading for the rendezvous point, and that he'll bring Dreadwing back to the bridge, since he doubts their supposedly honorable friend would have any compunctions about getting back in the fight if they left him alone. Having no reason to disagree, Bulkhead wishes his old buddy luck. Then as Wheeljack begins marching Dreadwing back the way they came, he continues on alone. As this happens, Arcee's group also come across a Decepticon of their own, though unlike Dreadwing who is spoiling for a fight, Knockout is huddled behind a stack of crates, evidently hoping no one would see him or force him to take part in the battle. In an angry tone, Bumblebee buzzes for the Decepticon doctor to get up, though as the Hot Rod does so, he makes a rather startling declaration that he wishes to join the Autobots. In a nervous tone, he then begins explaining how their group did wonders for Starscream, so maybe it'll happen to him, though being far too smart and now suspicious to fall for this, Arcee corrects that what he really means is he didn't think they'd make it this far in, and now that it seems that his side's losing, he wants to jump ship, right? Letting out a deep sigh, Knockout agrees that is one way to put it, though he can assure the two-wheeler that he will not be dead weight, as having spotted Jack beside Arcee, he grins that he knows where the little human hostages are being held. As expected, this catches the boy's attention, as he demands to know where his mum is, though tutting slightly, Knockout replies that if he told them, they'd scrap him the second he stopped talking, but he'd be happy to show them. Looking to Arcee as their de facto leader, both Jack and B ask what she thinks, as they're well aware this could be a trap. Though being in no mood for his smarmy games, the bike gestures for the Docbot to lead the way, while shaping one of her hands into a blaster, to make it abundantly clear what will happen if he tries anything funny. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Starscream has a new prize in hand as well, having stowed the Omega Key inside himself to ensure that it is not lost or damaged in the event that he actually has to fight. An unlikely occurrence, as with Darksteel and Skylynx still loping by his side in their dragon forms, he highly doubts he will run into anyone who can oppose them. However, this is because he had not anticipated running into Megatron, as when the trio prepare to step through one of the many doors linking two sections of the warship, they suddenly find themselves face to face with the Decepticon leader himself, and worse still, he's armed with the Star Saber. Letting out a shriek, Starscream commands his two subordinates to get him like they did with Shockwave, though, as they will soon learn, this foe is in a whole other league from anyone they've fought before, as when Skylynx attempts to pounce on him, Megatron simply swats the nuisance into a wall. Nonetheless, this does not stop Darksteel from taking flight and preparing to douse the former gladiator in flames, though here too Megatron is able to retaliate with swift and deadly efficiency, swinging the Star Saber upwards and cleaving the Predacon's head from his neck before he can attack, in a clear demonstration that while he cannot use the Saber's full power, as he is not a prime, what he can draw out, coupled with his own might, is worthy of being feared in its own right. And feared it is, as coming to terms with the fact that one of his seemingly unbeatable Predacons is dead, Starscream orders Skylynx to retreat, and once he is sure the Predacon has obeyed him, he transforms into a jet and flies off in another direction, hoping against hope that Megatron will not follow him. To his great surprise, the Decepticon leader does not give chase, though being too savvy to take this as confirmation that he is safe, Starscream keeps running, ready to do so for as long as it takes. Returning to Arcee and her team, they have arrived in a small dingy makeshift lab, which Knockout grumblingly explains as his new station, since Shockwave was given control of the main lab. Luckily for the humans, Shockwave isn't interested in them, or they likely would be in pieces by now, a claim which clearly unnerves Jack, as he snaps the Redbot to stop yammering and take him to his mum right now. Finding this more amusing than threatening despite the blaster poking into his back, the Decepticon doctor tells him to be patient, before pulling out a pair of large glass canisters, each of which contains one of the prisoners. As soon as they are open, Jack runs to his mother and pulls her into a hug, asking if she's hurt, though patting her son's back gently, June assures him that she's fine, she just needs something to eat and a place to catch up on her sleep. While the Autobots cannot offer her a bed, Bumblebee does transform into his car mode so that June and Agent Fowler can lie down, and accepting this gratefully, the pair clamber inside. In a gentle tone, Arcee asks Jack if he wants to go with them, though shaking his head, the boy replies that they can catch up later. He made a promise to her as her partner to watch her back, so he's sticking with her till the mission's done. Smiling that he's really grown up a lot since they met, Arcee becomes a bike, allowing Jack to mount up, and as Knockout's red sports car follows, the team begin heading for the bridge, since they want Ratchet to check the two rescued prisoners out before they ground bridge them back to the Harbinger. Unfortunately, this checkup might have to wait, as out of the darkness looms none other than Predacon. Spotting his Autobot enemies, the Great Dragon begins pursuing them, his flame breath barely missing their tailpipes. Hoping to end this peacefully, Arcee yells up at the king that they are not his enemies, and that it was Megatron and Shockwave he should be fighting, though it seems words will not get through to him, as with a feral screech, he dive bombs the two-wheeler, and attempts to crush her and Jack both with its claws. It is only thanks to the boys' shout that Arcee manages to dodge this in time, though all the same, she knows it's time for him to go, since clearly they can't outrun Predacon. Calling out to B, she instructs him to open his driver's side door. Then, as the yellow flap bursts open, she tells Jack to jump. That way Bumblebee can get all the humans to safety while she holds off the monster. Urgently, Jack protests that he's not leaving her, and that they're partners. Though in a morose tone, the bike replies that they sure are, and there's no sparking way she's losing another partner on this ship. Then, as she veers sharply to the side, Jack is thrown off her and into Bumblebee's waiting seat, with the Scout taking this as his cue to book it, while Arcee transforms back into a bot mode and prepares to fight. Figuring this will not be difficult, Predacon lazily belches a torrent of flame down at his prey. Though showing off her agility and athleticism, Arcee avoids this, rolling out of the way and firing up into his underbelly with her twin blaster hands. While this does not do much damage, it does annoy the ancient Cybertronian, who at last gives Arcee his full attention as he flies low and attempts to strike her with his tail. However, once again the zippy two-wheeler evades this, becoming a bike mid-dive so she can drive up the wall before becoming a bot again and peppering her foe with shots from above. Then, before he can whip his tail up to impale her, she is a bike again, using gravity to zoom back down the other side. Growing a little frustrated now, Predacon next attempts to land atop the Autobot, with Arcee only avoiding being crushed by inches, though sadly, she cannot escape the aftershock, which sends her crashing into a wall and forces her back into her regular form. Seeing this as a chance to end things, Predacon comes in for a bite, one Arcee also only narrowly avoids by throwing herself to the side. Though it does give her an idea, as while Predacon's armor may be too tough to damage with her shots, one powerful blast down the gullet might be enough to finish him off once and for all. Reverting to her bike mode, she then starts zigzagging between the beast's legs and running over his claws, which as she had hoped, causes him to roar in agitation, and so seeing her chance, she rolls back into view and aims both blasters up at his mouth for a point-blank charge shot. However, as she emerges, this is not all she sees, as unbeknownst to her, this roar had not been the only thing emanating from his throat, as there is also that deep orange light which indicates an incoming burst of flame breath. In her prone position so close to his mouth, there is nothing she can do, so that as the fire cascades over her a moment later, she can see nothing but burning brightness, and then blackness. Returning now to Optimus, he is at last made to the rendezvous spot at the dead center of the warship, though it seems he is the only one. While he has faith in his team, the Autobot leader cannot help but also worry about them, so much so that he almost misses the whirring of a ground bridge directly behind him. Turning back in the hope that it is one of Raph's, he is instead met by a sharp pain against his neck, as something thin and black emerges from the portal and strikes him. At once, his entire body goes rigid, and due to being mid-turn, he rather gracelessly falls back and through the portal. In an instant, Optimus finds himself outside, as he crashes down hard against the floor of the flight deck he arrived on, and as the green light of the ground bridge fades, he sees the one who brought him here to be none other than Soundwave, one sharp-fingered hand clutched around the immobilizer. As Soundwave is mute and Optimus cannot speak considering he is frozen by the ancient weapon, the pair share no words as they stare at each other, though there is no need to, as wrapping his other hand around the crest on Optimus's head, Soundwave begins dragging his prone form towards the edge of the deck, his intent clear, that even if he's not strong enough to kill a Prime, the fall from this height surely will. Meanwhile, back inside the ship, Starscream has unknowingly passed the rendezvous point, being too caught up in his fear of what Megatron with the Starsaber can do to spare much thought for direction. In fact, the only thing to snap him out of his panic is the horrifying sight that befalls him as he enters a new corridor. Arcee, her blackened body twisted and half smelted, with it seeming the only reason she is still alive is her indomitable willpower. Reverting to his bot mode and landing beside her, Starscream crouches down to examine his friend. A strange thought considering he has never had one before, and the one he chooses happens to hate him, though all the same, that is what she undeniably is to him. In a low voice, the Jetbot scolds that he bets she wound up this way by doing something noble. After all, he did tell her doing stupid noble things would end this way, though, in a stupid noble act of his own, he gently lifts her with plans to head for the bridge, since perhaps Ratchet can still save her. Unfortunately, due to not being the strongest of bots, he cannot move very fast while lifting his comrade's weight. Not that he could afford to move much faster anyway considering Arcee's condition. However, due to this slowed pace, there is nothing he can do when he rounds a corner and comes face to face with Megatron once again. Were he to abandon his friend to her fate and flee, perhaps he could save himself. Though in that moment, such a thought does not occur to him, only thinking of ways both he and Arcee could escape. However, it seems that is not either of their fate, as a moment later, he feels the Starsaber pierce his chest. The pain is excruciating, though mercifully, other things come along to draw his attention, like the feeling of energon leaking from his mouth, or the weakness in his servos as he collapses against a wall unable to even stand. While leering down at him, Megatron taunts that this time there will be no escape for his slippery former subordinate, though he supposes he does owe Starscream some thanks, since it was through his two failed attempts to scrap him that he was reminded of a lesson he learned in the pits of Kaon. Making an enemy die slowly is all well and good, but when one truly wishes to win, the best method is cold, hard steel. Now he's off to share that lesson with Optimus, so he hopes Starscream will pass on his regards when the two of them are reunited as part of the All-Spark. Returning now to Bumblebee, as one of the only Autobots not in mortal peril, he, Knockout, and the humans arrive on the bridge, reuniting with Ratchet, Smokescreen, and Wheeljack. Spotting the red sports car, Ratchet questions if he's another prisoner, though buzzing in the negative as he resumes bot form. B explains everything that has happened since they parted ways. While everyone is troubled by the idea of Arcee fighting Predacon alone, none are more so than Smokescreen, as he simply cannot abide the notion that his allies might be hurt or worse, while he's cloistered safely on the bridge like a coward, and so telling B to apologize to Optimus for him, he transforms into a car and tears off, determined to help however he can. Due to pretty much every major player besides Megatron, Predacon, and Soundwave being either eliminated or captured, this is a fairly smooth ride, with Rookie soon reaching the meetup point where Bulk is waiting for him. Worriedly, Smokescreen asks if any of the others have shown up yet, with this fear only compounding when the Green Wrecker shakes his head, as that means Optimus, Arcee, Starscream, and the Predacons are all unaccounted for. Figuring there's no point standing around waiting anymore, Smokescreen instructs Bulkhead to make haste for the bridge along a different path than the one he just took, since maybe some of their friends simply got lost, or decided to try pushing ahead when they saw no one else at the rendezvous. Meanwhile, he'll keep heading towards the rear of the warship. Then, if he doesn't see anyone, he'll double back and meet up with everyone on the bridge. Hopefully by then everyone will be together, though, if they're not, at least enough of them will be to start making a new plan. Nodding, the X-Wrecker then takes off, while feeling as though there's no time to lose, Smokescreen does likewise in the opposite direction. Bodies litter this pathway, more than there were on the bow end, suggesting that Optimus and his team must have had the worst fight on their hands, with Smokescreen being relieved to see that at the very least, there are no familiar faces among the dead. Finally, after what feels like forever, but is actually very little time at all, Smokescreen bursts through the busted door to the flight deck, and it is here at last that he sees a face he knows. Optimus, still in the grasp of Soundwave, who by now is mere feet from the edge. In that moment, the young elite guardsman does not think, simply transforming back into a robot and pulling the forge of Solus Prime from his back as he rushes Soundwave with a scream. Hearing this, Soundwave turns back just in time to have the immobilizer knocked from his hand. Then, keeping up the war cry, Smokescreen raises the hammer over his head and brings it down onto Soundwave's visor, caving it in. For a moment, the mute menace stands perfectly still, no different from in life aside from the critical damage to his cranial casing, though this is not long lasting, as a heartbeat later, his grip on Optimus slackens and he tumbles off the edge of the flight deck. Letting out a sigh as he drops the forge, Smokescreen reflects on how this is the first time he's looked another bot in the face and ended them, with it being far uglier than the glorious life of a soldier he imagined when he was a cadet. Nonetheless, now is not the time to wallow, and so grabbing up the immobilizer, he quickly restores Prime, who upon forcing the stiffness from his joints and mouth thanks the rookie for his assistance, as this is twice now he has proved instrumental in saving his life. Noting that it's his pleasure, Smokescreen helps his leader back to his feet, though before the pair can head inside to find the others, they spot a new figure standing in the doorway, having evidently been drawn by Smokescreen's cry. Predacon, still in his beast mode. Energon still pounding his auditory senses from everything that's just happened, the youngest Autobot hastily gathers up the immobilizer and charges the Predacon. This is his chance to take down one of their strongest enemies, and help bring this conflict to an end. This is his chance to crunch. The sound of metal crushing metal fills the flight deck, as Predacon lunges forward, with his gargantuan mouth, not only bites down on Smokescreen's weapon, but his arm, severing it just below the elbow. In that moment, the race car is in too much pain to even scream, let alone fight, so that as the beast tail whips around to strike him, he is sent crashing in a heap where he lies, unable to bring himself to move. Standing up now, Optimus urges his young subordinate to rest, promising to finish what he started, though this is just what Predacon wants, as after their last meeting on this deck, the ancient king's spark burns with a desire for revenge. To this end, he is the first to strike, lunging forward to bite down on him as he did Smokescreen. Though taking flight, Optimus manages to easily avoid this before raining several blaster shots down upon the beast from above. Considering this very move is what he seeks payback for, this only enrages Predacon more, as he takes this guy after him, though as Optimus will prove, while the Predacon is faster, he is a more skilled warrior, narrowly avoiding the flame breath attack his opponent launches up at him, before summoning his sword and slashing down across Predacon's maw. Bellowing with both pain and fury now, the ancient dragon comes around in midair. While hovering in place, Optimus prepares himself. What he's about to try will require perfect precision, though if he can line his thrust up with Predacon's optic, he can strike his central processor and end things quickly and painlessly. Or at least, that is what he thinks until something painful strikes him in the back. Turning to face the source, he sees none other than Megatron striding into view, his cannon arm raised to fire a second shot at his rival. However, this will not be necessary, as a moment later, Predacon slams into the distracted Optimus, driving him hard into the deck while snarling down at him. Leering menacingly, Megatron praises his pet, saying that together they have won a great victory for the Decepticons. Then, as he raises the Starsaber high, he prepares to end his nemesis as he did Darksteel. And he would succeed if not for the consequences of that prior kill, as before he can bring the blade down, Skylink swoops in, a vicious snarl tearing through his mechanical throat as he strikes Megatron, then leaps back to avoid that demon sword slash. It had taken him a while to catch the Decepticon leader's scent among all the others who'd been running and fighting throughout the ship, but using his superior Predacon abilities, Skylynx had found it, and now he has cornered the one who destroyed Darksteel, and so will avenge his fallen brother. However, it seems Megatron is not the only one Skylynx will have to contend with. As shifting back to his robot form and subsequently releasing Optimus, Predacon demands to know how another Predacon is here, and doing the same, Skylynx replies that he was revived by the Autobots, and now fights beside them for the future of their people. Coldly, Predacon snarls the only one who decides the future of their people is him, their king, though when he commands Skylynx to bow, the smaller Predacon instead attacks. Leaping back into his beast mode, Skylynx attempts to cleave Predacon in half with his talons, though shifting back just as fast, the Decepticon ally parries this with one of his own claws, then bites down on Skylynx's neck. Letting out a screech of pain, the good Pred tries desperately to bat him away with his wings, though when this proves unsuccessful, a recovered Optimus intervenes, firing several shots into the King's side that forces him to disengage. Though he cannot speak in this form, Skylynx's gratitude is apparent, as he lets loose a jet of of flame that stops Megatron in his tracks as he'd been rushing in to impale Optimus from behind. Recognizing that they work better as a team, Optimus rushes to his ally's side, and despite the chaos of the battle, respectfully asks if he may climb onto his back. Rolling his optics as if to agree, but only in the gruffest way possible, Skylynx lowers himself, and as Optimus sits astride him, he raises his blade high, before declaring to Megatron that today, one shall stand, and one shall fall. Snarling that the one to fall will be Prime, Megatron commands Predacon to come to him. Then, as he flies by, the Decepticon Warlord leaps onto his back. Roaring angrily at the sight of two of his enemies united, Skylynx lets out a burst of flame breath. While covering his ally, Optimus opens fire on Predacon. Unfortunately, being the larger and stronger Predacon, the King simply soars out of the way, and refusing to let the one who scrapped Darksteel go, Skylynx gives chase, with the two pairs soon circling the warship. As Predacon has a head start in his flight, there is little Skylynx can do during this next stretch of the battle beyond continuing closing in, with it therefore falling to Optimus to be the primary combatant, firing shots that attempt to slow the opposing mount down. However, this is where Megatron comes into play, as brandishing the Starsaber almost tauntingly, he slices through each blast, causing them to go flying off harmlessly. Cackling at Prime's failure, the Decepticon leader then commands his servant to go on the attack, and bellowing like a mad beast, Predacon performs a sharp aerial turn. Then, as Skylynx comes into range, he lets loose a burst of flames. Desperately, the smaller Predacon does the same, with this managing to match the Monarch's power, so that the two flames cancel each other out as the pair of ancient Cybertronians pass each other by. As this happens, both Optimus and Megatron swing their blades, though due to the speed with which the Predacons are flying, these narrowly miss each other, forcing them to try again. Sharing the same thought in that moment, the two leaders instruct their mounts to perform a frontal assault. Then, as the Predacons rake their claws across each other's flanks, Optimus and Megatron bring their swords up for one final clash, the ancestral weapon of the Primes against a sword no different from what any Cybertronian can manifest. In that regard, the outcome seems obvious, with Megatron leering that he wins. Though, as their weapons spark against each other, something peculiar happens. Whether it is because the Starsaber refuses to slay its rightful master, or because in the hands of Megatron it is just another blade, and one he treats with no respect like all his other tools, the Starsaber shatters when struck by Optimus's sword. For a moment, Megatron attempts to cry out in rage, though this quickly becomes pain, as with his weapon gone, there is nothing to defend him from the slash Optimus carves across his chest. It is not a mortal wound like the ones he has inflicted on others, but it is enough to break the Decepticon insignia on his chest, and to send him tumbling forward and off of Predacon's back. Seeing Megatron fall, Optimus retracts his blade and reaches out a hand to catch him, as despite all he's done, he still feels compelled to try and save his former friend. However, before he can grab his hand, Skylynx backs up as Predacon had been in the midst of trying to bite him once again, so that instead of the smaller Predacon, it is Megatron who finds himself caught between the fangs of his monster as they clamp down and cleave him in half, ending his life. No one speaks as the two lifeless halves of Megatron clatter to the deck of the warship surrounded by the broken pieces of the Starsaber, as everyone must grapple with their own complicated feelings on the situation. That is aside from Skylynx, who feels nothing but triumph as he lands back on deck. Climbing down from the Predacon's back with his thanks, Optimus surveys the bot who at different times was his hero, mentor, friend, nemesis, and now victim, while from above, Predacon flies off into the boundless blue, his oath of allegiance having been to a master who is now gone. With the departure of Predacon and Megatron's fall, the battle, and more importantly the war is finally at an end, and so rounding up the last few Decepticons and Vehicons, the Autobots must figure out what to do with them as they move into peacetime. For most, the answer seems clear. They will be sent to the brig to await trial, though this is not the case for Dreadwing, as when Optimus returns to the bridge where the second-in-command has remained, he extends one last offer to become an Autobot, since he fought with honor throughout, and the Decepticon movement is over. However, rather than being met with gratitude, Dreadwing responds with anger and defiance, stating the movement is only over when all those who are loyal to it have abandoned it, so he will take imprisonment over betraying his master, with the promise to tell the story of the mighty Lord Megatron for as long as his spark still shines. Respecting the other bot's principles, Optimus does not try to dissuade him, instead gesturing for Bulkhead and Wheeljack to take him away, or nervously, Knockout questions what's going to happen to him. In a steady tone, the Autobot leader replies that while he has committed many crimes, Bumblebee has vouched for his defection, meaning he will be allowed to join their ranks if he so desires, though he has much work ahead of him if he wishes to make amends for his past transgressions. With the matter of the enemy now dealt with, it is time for Optimus to turn his attention to his allies. Thankfully, Ratchet is able to assure him that by making use of the Decepticons' medical supplies, he will be able to install a new hand for Smokescreen without issue, a prospect that excites the rookie somewhat as this will be his first battle scar. However, the outlook is not so good for Arcee and Starscream, as having been found by Bulkhead while looking for his boss, the big bot had brought them back to the bridge where Ratchet's triage had allowed them to hold on, though this is just delaying the inevitable. Or rather, it is for one of them, as still having a single charge left in the forge, Optimus knows he can save one ally, though the decision of which is not one he feels is his right to make alone. Looking down at the pair who have fought so bravely for the cause, Optimus requests their input, not as their commander, but as a comrade, and as Starscream looks up at him and then across at Arcee who is lying beside him, he finds himself conflicted. Naturally, the selfish part of him wants that lifeline for himself. After all, he only got stabbed because Arcee needed saving, so if anything, he deserves it, right? However, this is overruled by a larger voice in his head, one that sounds disturbingly like Prime, as it reminds him that he was injured because he was willing to put his life on the line for a friend he wanted to save, a friend he wronged, and who had all the reason in the galaxy to scrap him but didn't. If one of them is to live, it should be her. Turning his red optics back to Optimus, Starscream says as much, with the blue and red bot nodding solemnly as he states the Jetbot has the spark of a true Autobot. Then, as he brings the head of the forge down upon Arcee, a powerful light bursts from it, and when it fades, the two-wheeler is not only good as new, but seemingly upgraded just like Prime himself was. Starscream is glad he got to see proof that his sacrifice was not in vain. Then, as the Autobots crowd around him, he gets himself into a more dignified position and closes his optics, ready to become one with the old spark. However, nothing happens, with this causing Starscream to purse his lips as this waiting is getting annoying and the pain in his chest is still agony. Opening an optic just a crack, he questions if Ratchet disconnected him from whatever was keeping him alive, and when the Docbot nods, he closes the optic again and prepares for the end. But, once again, he receives nothing. Still feeling himself lying uncomfortably on the cold bridge floor with a mortal wound from where Megatron impaled him. Now more than annoyed as it seems fate has intervened to ruin his heroic sacrifice, Starscream demands to know what's happening, with Ratchet scanning him and stating that while his spark is diminished from all the damage he took, it isn't extinguishing, which surely makes him some kind of mutant. Indignantly, the Jetbot questions if this means every time he was afraid of dying it was for nothing, to which Ratchet shrugs that apparently so. Looking over to Arcee now, Starscream questions if the fact he was willing to die for her at least makes up for Cliffjumper, though flatly, the blue two-wheeler replies that no, it doesn't. But having now seen him lie dying, she doesn't feel the need to end him personally, so perhaps with time he can start regaining her trust. Then, with another word, she saunters away to test out her new abilities, wondering if she can fly from this upgrade like Optimus can, while Starscream screeches at her not to walk away from him like that, though there isn't much he can do about it beyond lie, reason, and grumble at Ratchet to give him something for the pain, since even if the Star Saber stab can't kill him, the agonizing sensation of a hole in his chest still keeps him rooted to the spot. Following the last of this business aboard the warship, the Autobots at last return to the Harbinger, though all are aware this will likely be for the last time, as now that they have the last Omega Key in a ship to get them home, it is time for them to return to Cybertron and restore their world. As the atmosphere is toxic to humans, Raph, Jack and Miko all know that they can't go with their friends, and so share a heartfelt goodbye with the Autobots, especially their guardians. Though never one from wish goodbyes, Starscream simply tells them to keep doing those strange organic things they do, like eating and growing. Though, seeing through this, they all grin that they'll miss him too. However, one Autobot they do not have to say goodbye to is Ratchet, as with Predacon still somewhere on Earth and other threats likely to pop up, he is elected to stay behind. Understanding his old friend's feelings, Optimus tells Ratchet to be well, an instruction he is quick to return. Then looking to Knockout, he tells him that he's the Autobot doctor now, so he should be prepared to have his servos full, as this bunch are always coming home half scrapped. As is typical of Knockout, he rolls his optics and snarks that maybe he would have had an easier time in prison, though when Starscream smirks that this could still be arranged, the Red Racer falls silent, with the Jetbot stowing this away for later use, whenever Knockout's griping gets on his nerves. And with that, the Autobots begin their voyage to Cybertron. All aboard the ship share a sense of nervous anticipation, as while they have faith in Optimus, it is anyone's guess if the Omega can truly restore their world. And if so, there is still so much to figure out, like how to locate other lost members of their race scattered among the stars and bring them home. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, Cybertron appears on the warship's view screen, and as they touch down, Optimus instructs his team to go ahead to the Omega Lock, as he has one piece of important business to attend to alone. When the others are gone, the Autobot leader makes his way to the hold, where wrapped in shroud are the pieces of Megatron's body. Gathering them up in his arms, Optimus then takes flight, soaring above the ruined skyline of their home, though nowhere here is their destination, with him instead descending deep underground to the Well of All Sparks. Due to being a sacred place, there is great solemnity to Optimus's movements as he lands softly and kneels beside the pool. Then, as he lowers Megatron's body into it so that he may become one with the All Spark, he makes a silent wish that in the next life Megatron's unyielding nature can be put to use for better things, and when that day comes, he hopes they can stand together as friends once again. Meanwhile, the other Autobots have made their way to the Sea of Rust, with Arcee leading the way now in a vehicle form that, while still lithe and agile, is better suited for any terrain. Above her flies a now repaired Starscream, who due to his jet mode has the best view, spotting the Omega-Lock long before the others and likewise being the first to reach it. Not long after, the rest of the team arrive, and as he, Arcee, Smokescreen and Bumblebee raise their keys, the shrine once again reforms. Then, as Optimus lands beside them, they place their keys in the lock and watch their world change. In an instant, the smoggy skies become clear and the rusty brands of the landscape become shining silver. Beaming, Bulkhead declares that it's the Cybertron of old, good as new, though shaking his head, Starscream corrects that it's not, as having paid the price to learn from their mistakes, this Cybertron will be better and more united. As one, everyone nods, be they Predacon or Wrecker, ex-Decepticon or Prime. Then, on Optimus's command, they transform and roll out, as there is still much to do. And that's where we'll leave this series. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.